We're the title company that tries to grow your brain before your waistline. That's not to say we don't sometimes bring food, because we do. But this is what I do. I do classes on technology and consulting and try to help you grow your business. This is a 3-hour MCE class today. So how many of you need or could use 3 hours of MCE? Okay. If you don't need MCE for this class, you do not need to fill in the enrollment form. If you are taking it for MCE, then sometime during the first hour, did you all get an enrollment form? Did Will give one to everybody? Single piece of paper. Just sometime during the first hour, fill that in.
Yes.
Okay. And then at the end of the class, we'll have the regular Trek roster. No real ground rules for Trek other than just a couple things. We'll take a break at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. And I ask, if you will, other than what we're going to do with them in the class, if we can avoid texting and so forth, I'll sure appreciate it. Same for me. I don't even know where my phone went. I need it. It's here somewhere. I'll have to run the Find My Phone app. Well, that's very strange. Other than that, no smoking. I encourage you to have a good time. That's my only rule. Find my phone. Here it is. So let me ask a few questions. So I guess, did all of you bring tablets? Do you have tablets? This is a...
Laptops?
Well, laptops are not particularly necessary for this class. We're mostly about tablets and phones. So if you got one, yeah, sure, grab it. So let me, while he's doing that, let me just get a little poll going here. How many of you currently have Dropbox, have used Dropbox? Okay, good. First time I taught this class several years ago, I was, I think, the only person in the world that used Dropbox, but we're going to talk about some good uses of it and some do's and don'ts today. I'm going to show you how to use your phone and your tablet for everything from scanning, remotely operating other computers, not only opening and seeing your documents, but editing your documents, and some nice apps that I like to use that work with these products. I'm also going to compare and contrast Dropbox, Box, Google Drive, SugarSync. There's a bunch of them out there. We'll talk about them and why I like what I like and so forth. And I encourage you to ask questions. We're a small group. I normally ask folks to wait about 10 minutes, let me get through a little segment. That's still a good idea, but if you have a question, go ahead and shoot your hand up. If we had 100 people, I couldn't do that, but with 4, well, 5 if you count Frank. Well, we got to count Frank.
4.5.
Yeah, 4.5. Then it won't be a problem at all. How many of you are, just so I get some demographics, I'm assuming all of you have a Facebook personal page. How many of you have a Facebook business page? Okay. LinkedIn? I think so. Twitter? Blog? Okay.
Really?
Really? Account on YouTube? Okay. We'll be talking about some of these things. Everything you just heard me say, we have classes for, and I'm a huge, huge advocate of video. I think Frank likes video too. Every time I turn around, he's got a camera on me somewhere.
Exactly.
So he must like video. We'll talk about that and we'll work that into our discussions. Today, though, it's mostly about the tablet. So let's get started. If you'll pop these books open and flip to the first page with stuff on it. The objective is in there, and I pretty much covered that with you. Let's talk about cloud technology for just a few minutes so you understand it better. Number one, what is the cloud? If I said cloud, what does that mean to you? There. Okay, as it relates to us, what is the cloud?
Storage.
A network of servers.
Storage. Network of servers. It's the internet. It's been around forever. All we're doing is we gave it a name in the last several years, and companies like iCloud and Dropbox and Box and Mozy and Carbonite, etc., are basically using rows and rows and rows of computers in a room somewhere that's temperature controlled, guarded, out in Utah somewhere, and they're storing your data, or they're letting you have access to your data on multiple computers, and they're charging you anywhere from a little bit to a lot more for the data. That's it. So all cloud technology is offsite access to your data. And the advantage, of course, with a tablet is that you don't have to buy the tablet that has the biggest memory, because your data is basically offsite. And I might add, very secure, because because they have multiple servers. Good morning.
Hi, Helen.
Hey.
Frank, I'm gonna, in case we get a couple folks coming in, I'm just gonna leave these back here with you.
Okay, yeah, I'll take care of
And if somebody needs MC, they need the enrollment form, otherwise they don't. Okay, so that's what the cloud is. The purpose of this class, so you understand, is to show you how you can use your phone and your tablet more than 80, maybe even 85% of the time while you're out there. A tablet does not take the place of a computer. And just to be clear, when people ask me like about the Microsoft Surface, it's kind of a in between. It actually acts more like a computer than a tablet in many ways. Let me find out what we have today. Who has an iPad? Okay. Android tablets? Okay. Who does not have a tablet?
I'm working off a laptop exclusively.
That's okay. I mean, but it's going to be the class will mostly address apps, but you'll see how it all fits together.
You might convince me to buy one, though.
You'll convince yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll convince yourself. And then just so I know, as far as computers go, who has a Mac? I see 1 Mac, 2 Macs, 3 Macs, 4 Macs. And then you all have PCs, I guess. Okay. Anybody have an Abacus? Abacus, okay. Look it up, it's an old device from the 1st century. Okay. So I've talked a little bit about what cloud technology is. Now let's talk a little bit about the companies, because we throw these names out there as though they're somewhat ubiquitous, and they are, but there are differences. When we talk about clouds, there's Dropbox, there's Box, there's SugarSync, there's iCloud. On the next page I mentioned, I'm not going to cover WebDAV. There's a lot of clouds out there. In other words, a lot of people. Dropbox actually used to be a part of Amazon. Amazon's got the biggest cloud in the world, and they used to lease space from Amazon. Now they have their own hardware, towers, if you will, and they have their own servers, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, the reason that I like Dropbox the most is because I find it to be the most universal. Since the cloud is not an app, or I should say Dropbox is not an app, it really isn't, it's just storage, then it's of no good to us unless apps support it, like Microsoft Office and a lot of other apps. So I find that Dropbox is probably, at this time, the most supported cloud out there. Google Drive is up there, Microsoft has a bunch, but I find just about anything I want to connect to the cloud, I can use Dropbox for. Does that make sense? Now, if you're in a business environment where you're on a team, maybe a good sized team, then you might want to look at Box. Box actually has, works very much the same as Dropbox, really good folks, but Box has more abilities to set parameters for people, like you can edit, but you can just view, that kind of thing. And Dropbox has that to a small degree, Box has it to a larger degree. So when you get into teams and sharing, that's probably a good product to think about. Yeah, okay, then go ahead.
I have a question. Okay, so what about OneDrive?
OneDrive is the same thing. OneDrive is Microsoft's Drive.
Right.
Now the good news, we're going to talk later about running Word, Excel, and PowerPoint on your tablet. Have you run them on your tablet? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Microsoft realizes how important Dropbox is, and so they support Dropbox in addition to OneDrive. The problem with OneDrive is that a lot of the apps we'll talk about today don't support OneDrive.
Gotcha.
And that's, again, why I've picked Dropbox.
Okay.
The other thing about Dropbox, and they're all this way now, Dropbox is incredibly easy to use. There's absolutely nothing to learn.
Right.
It's a folder. That's it. Okay.
Just on OneDrive, you get more storage. I think there's
Probably.
a terabyte.
I don't think you get a terabyte
I
free.
actually just looked it up.
So
that was my only thing. I'm a
you're not
Dropbox
going to get
user.
that much storage unless you're using Microsoft 360 or you're using Microsoft's Office.
Yeah.
So they're going to get you for some money one way or the other.
Right.
But
Okay.
yeah, we'll cover it. With Dropbox, you get a small amount of storage,
Mhm.
but for $8 a month, you're going to get a terabyte.
Okay.
That's all.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Quick question, Stephen, if you want to address this later,
Yeah.
that's fine. I bought a new MacBook Pro with minimal hard drive storage because I use Dropbox.
Uh-huh.
And then what I quickly discovered
It's
is
got to be in both places.
it has to be in
Yeah.
both places.
It's not going to save you. It's not going to save you space on your computer.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and they're all that way.
Yes.
Yeah, they're all that way. When you're using a computer, the files get mirrored. So in order for it to get onto the drive for a computer, it first has to be on the computer's drive, and then it will mirror a copy out to OneDrive or Box or Dropbox or Google.
So now I'm having to carry around an external 5 terabyte hard drive.
Mm-hmm. Have you thought of getting a tablet?
Well, I'm here.
Okay.
What constitutes a good-sized team? At what point would you go to Box, like you said?
I don't know, if you're getting beyond 3 or 4 people, you might want to look at Box, because then you're going to, now Dropbox also has a business version, but at that point you may want to look at Box. Okay, and it would not be hard at all to get all your stuff on there, because it kind of works the same way. But yeah, Frank, that's, you discovered a very astute point. That is, it's going to be mirrored. Now with the tablets, it's quite different. With the tablets and the phones, everything you're looking at is not on here at all. It's strictly looking at the cloud.
Oh.
So there's no data on here with regard to Dropbox or Box. So I can.
Do you have an iPad?
Why don't, I do have an iPad, but it's like, you know, it was made with when the Abacus was made.
I understand. Keep watching. Keep watching. You may find it's worth dusting off that iPad. Okay. All right. That's kind of a brief overview. Now on page 3 at the top, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention something about backup, and I'm primarily referring to backing up your computer. It's not a matter of whether it will need backing up or need restoring someday. Something will happen, most likely, if you have a computer long enough. There's a couple of products out there. I mentioned Carbonite at the top of page 3, which I use. There's also a product called Mozy, and there are some others on the market. I like Carbonite. It runs on a Mac, it runs on a PC. It's $5, it's $60 a year. $60 a year, that's $5 a month. And the cool thing about it is Carbonite backs up to the cloud in the background, no participation from you at all. I find that most people will back up their computer if they don't have to back up their computer. So it just runs. When you first, hang on just one second, if you first get it, when you first get it, it may take a day or two because it's running in the background. I had a lot of data, it took a while to back me up. I had 400 or 500 gig. Once it backs up, it only backs up what it needs to back up. So on a given day, if you add one file, one PDF file, that's all it backs up. If you do nothing, it backs up nothing. Frank?
So I also have Carbonite, but I've wondered if that's redundant.
No, that was a good
Okay.
question. Your questions are great, but I'm ready for them.
Okay, apparently.
Here's why it's not redundant. With Carbonite, if I lose a file, the file's on Carbonite for 30 days. So as long as I know within 30 days that I lost it, and even there, they can go into their archives.
Okay.
But think about for a minute the way that Dropbox works, and we're going to get into that in a little more detail in a minute. I got a file on my computer. It gets erased. What does that do to the copy of the file on the cloud?
Erases.
It erases it there also. So it's a little different scenario. Now, there is some redundancy, and I don't mind that. I've got 60, 70,000 photos backed up, probably both on Carbonite and on Dropbox. Another advantage of Carbonite is that if you have Dropbox, if you don't put everything in the way of your data under the Dropbox folder or subfolders, it doesn't get backed up by Dropbox. Carbonite's going to back up all your data,
Okay.
wherever it finds it.
Okay.
And that includes any kind of data files like Excel, Word, PowerPoint, PDFs, JPEGs, TIFFs, GIFs, everything.
Does it include my external hard drive?
If you get that version, it costs a bit more, but if you get that version, it'll back up your external hard drive.
Ooh, I might need to do that.
Mhm.
Okay.
So it's going to back up a bunch of stuff. $60 a month is the base starting price. If you have multiple computers in your family, you can get a better deal if you get their small business deal. And again, one of their packages, it's maybe $40 more a year, will back up external hard drives.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it's a really good product. I used to have a dear friend, Judy Hopkins, who owns some real estate offices, and she passed away a couple of years ago, but Judy kept all of her books in QuickBooks, and one day her computer crashed. We had her on Carbonite. So as soon as they got her set up with a new hard drive, we brought her data back just like that, and she was back in business literally because of Carbonite. So again, yeah, I just can't recommend something like that enough. When you need it, it's a godsend. Clear enough? Easy to set the account up too. Interestingly enough, iCloud is one of the least supported clouds out there. I ask people sometimes, how many apps do you think Apple has made? Any idea? How many apps do you think Apple has made, written?
Thousands.
About 20? Just 20 out of 250,000. Other people write all the apps. Apple's got Numbers, and they've got Keynote, and they've got Pages, and they've got, you know, some video programs, and they've got Contacts and Calendar and all that. But it's all in all, it's only about 20 apps or so. So guess who the main user of iCloud is? Apple. They back your tablet up to iCloud. And that's another reason I'm not too concerned. I will say something about backing these guys up in a minute, because some people think their phone and their tablet's being backed up when it's not. So we'll go over that. But Apple themselves obviously interface a lot with iCloud. iTunes, iBooks, anything is going to interface with iCloud. Again, that's why I like Dropbox, because everybody works with Dropbox. I just wanted to mention that to you. Okay, I said demonstration of Dropbox. I'm going to demonstrate it. I'm not going to be able to show the short video because I think Dropbox took down their video, but I am going to show you some stuff on how this works. Now, some of you are going to know a lot of what I'm telling you, but hopefully I've got some stuff for all of you today. Okay. So here's some things that you may and may not know about how Dropbox works. Who does not yet have Dropbox? Anybody? So everybody's got Dropbox, right? All right. One thing you probably already know is if you've installed Dropbox, there's a lot of ways to do it. You don't have to actually install it on your computer at all, but that wouldn't make sense. If you have a laptop, you'd want it to be installed on the laptop. Whatever password and login email address you use on one device, you would use on others. So if you're also running the app, of course, make sure you use the same login address on the app. With either. The app runs on here, I have the app running on my phone. Now, there's some ways to share that I want to get into. Sharing with yourself, sharing with a business partner, sharing with a vendor, sharing with an assistant, sharing with a customer. We'll have different considerations, so I want to go over the different things to be aware of with Dropbox. So let's first of all say that I want to share with myself, or my wife and I want to completely share Dropbox. Nothing left out. Not even her black book of dates or anything like that. Nothing gets left out. So how do we do that? I want to install it on the home computer. What do I do to make sure that happens?
Use the same login.
That's it. Same login, and now anything that I put on my computer goes to the cloud. It also goes to her computer. Now what that means, and we're starting off with this triangle, what that means is there's 3 copies of every file. One here, one there, one there. If Amy opens that Excel spreadsheet and adds something to it, let's say a password, it immediately pushes it back to the cloud, which immediately looks for all computers that are sharing that file, and it pushes it to them as well. Now you can get into a potential conflict with Dropbox, meaning like we have a passwords file that for a while we were pretty active with, both of us. It was an Excel file. And what that meant was if I had it open and she had it open, we had our own copies open. So if I'm making changes to mine, she's making changes to hers, Dropbox tries very hard to be aware of that, and it will actually create a file called Amy's conflicted copy and Steve's conflicted copy, so you can figure out which one you want. That's not likely to happen, but I just wanted to point out that you're not actually working with the one and only file in real time. There's 3 copies of that file going on when you're dealing with computers. Now, the next scenario is, and of course, I should say also, if I want to see any of those files on my mobile device, I can see them immediately, because as soon as they hit the cloud, that's what the mobile app is looking at. So for example, well, we'll do it in a second, but that's what the mobile app sees. Now let's go ahead and just make that happen to show you. And I've got to get, hang on just a minute, I've got to get one more, I didn't pull it out, I've got to get one more adapter. So many adapters. Oh, I'm not in the screen anymore, Frank. We'll have to fill that with something. We'll figure it out.
It's just going to make people want you more.
Okay.
He's back.
Here we go, I'm back. All right, so just to be sure we all understand how this works, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to create a document in Word. I put a solid state hard drive on here recently, and it just screams, it's so fast. We'll make a new document. And I'll just put on here, let's make that page width. By the way, those of you who have Mac computers, did you know you can dictate to your Mac, or do any of you dictate to your Mac? Check this out. Thanks so much for having us in today to do the class, period. I look forward to seeing you each month, period. New paragraph, Steve. Pretty cool. And if you have a Mac, the way that works, just in passing, is you go to the Apple up here, you bring up your system preferences, you go to dictation and speech, and you set it for dictation on. How about that? And then I do not use enhanced dictation, it slows you down. That's it. You set it for dictation on, and then you simply pick what you want your shortcut to be. You can press the function key twice or a couple of other keys twice. I use the command key twice. So when I'm ready to dictate, and I'm mentioning this because this actually fits into this class, because the whole idea is to be more productive in the field. And if you're out and about with your computer, most of us know, and I'm using Apple as an example, but most of us know, who has Android phones? So we're all Apple in here?
Yeah.
Oh, then we can speak freely, all right, we can talk, we can talk. I'm always so scared I'm gonna be politically incorrect when there's Androids in the room. And I don't get into that argument, I mean, not in public, when people say, what do you prefer, Android or, well, I'm gonna buy a tablet, what should I buy? What kind of phone do you have? I have an Android, then buy an Android. I mean, that's my answer. I'm not one of these Apple fanboys, but in private, when I'm with my own kind. Okay, so anyway, we know, you all know you can dictate on here, and you know you can dictate on the tablet, but I had to check it out. I knew you could dictate on the Mac, and the way you set it up is the way I just showed you. Also, I'm not going to get into details, this is not a dictation class, but Siri, and probably Android, is based on Dragon Naturally Speaking technology. And if you Google it, you can get the manual, if you will, for Siri dictation. Most of us know how to say certain words, and you can use the words period and exclamation point and so forth. But you can also get into stuff like this. If I were to say First American Title, there's a few ways I could do it, like this. First American Title, new line, caps on, First American Title, caps off, new line, all caps on, First American Title, all caps off. And you see the first case, the second case is the caps are on the first letter, and then in the third case, when I said all caps on, all caps are on. So again, you can use words like open quote, open parentheses, close parentheses, etc. So pretty cool. My mom still makes fun of me because I type with 2 fingers. I can do about 35 words a minute, but I can talk about 99 words a minute, and I never shut up anyway, so there you go. All right, so this was starting off as hi Frank. Let's just do that. Thanks very much for having us in, and then I'll put Steve. Now, I'm going to go ahead and save this file. Now, I've set my default in Word and other programs to go to, at least I think I did, to go to Dropbox. And I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call it Frank. And I'm going to put Hi Frank in the Frank folder, and I'm done. So I just wanted to go over, there's nothing new going on with Dropbox. Now, on a Mac, at the very top of the screen, of course, you have your Dropbox folder, and on a PC, you'd have it in the system tray down at the bottom. Now, in a minute, I'm going to switch over to the portable devices. So on a Mac, this represents my Dropbox here. And on a PC, it would be in that little system tray in the lower right-hand corner. Does that make sense? I'm on a Mac, of course, so mine's up here. Now, we really don't ever have to go into this. You can. If I click it, it'll show me if anything's backing up. It'll let me get out to the web. I rarely go to Dropbox on the web. Do any of you go to Dropbox on the web? There's not a lot of use for it. I mean, it's here. I can click this. I can tell it to visit the web with this little icon, and then we'll see my Dropbox account on the web. That's useful, I suppose, if you have no devices on you and you're at any computer anywhere, you just log into Dropbox. I'm already logged in because I'm running Dropbox. But if you were anywhere in the world, you could be at a computer and you could get to your data, which means there should be a Frank folder on here now. There it is. And inside of it, there should be a Hi Frank doc. There it is. Now Dropbox has built into it different what are called viewers. So if it's a Word file, a PDF, a TIFF, a JPEG, whatever it is, PowerPoint, Dropbox can view it for you. You can't edit it, but it can view it. We good so far? Okay. So like I said, I rarely go to Dropbox on the web, but it is there. Now, I'm not going to waste time, but just to understand, we'll see it in a minute. If I were, you all know what the Dropbox app looks like, so I'm not going to bore you by showing it to you. But if I were to open Dropbox on here right now, then it's going to show me that file. And the reason I know it's there is because as soon as it's on the web, it's going to show up on here. Because these guys are looking at the web, and you're never actually storing data on here unless you choose to copy it down to your devices. Now, let's talk a little more about sharing files. Since I'm on a computer, and then I'll show you how to do it from the tablet, let's say I want to share some stuff. Now, I'm going into my file folders, and I'm going to come down. I'm under Dropbox. And by the way, everything I have is under Dropbox. I took everything that used to be under my documents, and I put it under Dropbox, and everything I add now, I put under Dropbox. When I first got the $100 a year version of Dropbox, it was like 100 megabytes. And then, I mean, it was nothing. It was a gigabyte, I don't know, it was small. And they upped it, and they upped it, and upped it. Now they're up to, I believe, it's a terabyte of data. So they do give you a lot of data. What I'd like to see them do is give you like half the data and charge you $49 a year. I think that'd be a good price point for a lot of people. It's kind of like going to a buffet. You know, for $5.95 you're going to get this, but for $12.95 you can have up to 12 pounds of food, right? Nobody's going to eat 12 pounds of food, and nobody hardly is going to use a terabyte or come close to a terabyte of data unless you do a lot of video. But they know they're making money off that because nobody's using it. In any event, it's still a good deal. So now, if I wanted to share something, let me show you a couple ways to share. I'm going to not take Frank's folder. I'm going to take what I call my 000, which is just junk that I put in there. And this is really important. Remember, everything I'm showing you is under Dropbox, okay? Now, if I wanted to share this entire folder with someone, have y'all ever shared folders with people? How did you do it? Did you go into the Dropbox, or did you do it off your computer? Did you do it off your device?
I think I do it off the computer.
Okay, I'll show you two ways to do it without going into Dropbox at all. One way is to right-click the folder. Now you'll notice when I right-click it, Dropbox sets up some choices of its own right here, okay? Now you want to be careful here, unless they've changed it. You typically do not want to click Share when you want to share a folder. I know that sounds strange, and I'll explain why. You typically want to say, copy the Dropbox link. By copying the link, then I could fire off an email, and I could paste the link. So here's an email to Frank. Paste the link. And that's going to take Frank to my folder, whereupon he can download files, he can copy them, but he cannot erase any of them, and he cannot edit any of them directly on Dropbox. And he doesn't need Dropbox. He does not need Dropbox. So this is really important. When you want to share something with a client, maybe you've got long docs and you've got other types of documents, inspections, stuff from the termite guy, and a whole bunch of pictures of the house, and you want to share those, then you go ahead and set up a folder and call it Bob Buyer, let's say. But when you share stuff with Bob, share the link with Bob. Share the link. And then tell Bob, go ahead and Bob, set up a favorite, make that a favorite, because anything you add to that folder, all you have to say to him is go to your folder, go look at it, because you can change stuff in there. He can download it, he can look at it, he can do whatever he wants, but he can't change stuff nor delete the folder. Make sense? Now, by contrast, if you go in and I right-click and I say, I want to share this folder, now it's going to ask who do I want to share it with, and I have to give an email address and I can add a message. If you do that, then they have to have Dropbox, number one. And number two, you need to be really careful how you set parameters. Here you'll notice, and this is only because I have the Pro version. If I didn't have the Pro version, I wouldn't have this choice. I can say I want to allow anyone who can edit to manage membership of this folder. I can say that they can edit or they can only view. But you got to be really careful when you share, and if you don't have the Pro version, you won't be able to set those parameters. So takeaway from this is if you're going to share with someone who doesn't need to be editing it, do it via copying the link and then sharing. Now it's going to work a little differently on the tablet. The tablet's a little more secure. Does that make sense? Okay. When you go to share a folder, that's how you do it. Let's say I want to share a single file with somebody. Let's say it's this file right here. I want to share that with Jackie. When I right-click a single file, then you will only be able to copy the link and send it. So with a single file, you're safe. They can't edit it. But when you share a folder, you got to be careful because they can potentially edit a folder. And what that means is, just to take it to the extreme, if I share a folder with Frank, and Frank's only been on a computer for a couple of years and he's still getting used to it, and Frank accidentally goes in and deletes one or more files or deletes the folder, what happens? It deletes it from his computer, deletes it off the cloud, which then comes back on me and deletes it off my computer. So you want to be careful with that. Okay? Now I'm going to switch gears for a second and I'm going to go to the tablet. And then let's talk about what it looks like on the tablet, or the phone for that matter. I was panicked last night. I was watching a movie or something late, lying in bed, watching a movie, burning up my battery on here, and realized I wasn't plugged in, and I went, no big deal. Then I thought, oh my God, I'm doing the iPad class in the morning. At 2 o'clock I plugged it in, and fortunately at 6 it was done. All right, so now I'm going to go to my tablet, and I'm going to go to Dropbox, and I'm going to go to that same folder. So there's a couple things you want to be aware of here. Here's my 000 folder. Now if you look, you have up arrows